The mob was very prevalent back in the day, and I like talking about it. We talked a little bit before we started the show. Everybody knows who Tony Spilaccio was. Well, not everybody knows, but you know what I mean.
But they should.
They should. And if they didn't, they really should have.
Tony the Ant.
Tony the Ant. That way, well, Anthony. Italians take Anthony and make an Anthony.
But he was 4'9", so it fit.
I know he was bigger than that.
Okay.
No. I think he was a. No, I don't see 4'9".
So they reduced his size.
Yeah, I was
make it
taller
work.
than he was, but I'm only 5'6". So I would say he was. Yeah, they want to make him as small as possible. But Tony Spilaccio, I'd say 5'2", 5'3", something in that area.
Okay.
You know, and met him a few times. He was always very pleasant, but of course he was known as a killer, big time.
But everyone who meets him that I've talked to said he was scary.
He was scary because his eyes were shifty.
Uh-huh.
You know, he'd look through you, not at you. It was very interesting. But I worked with him when he had the Gold Rush jewelry store. Now, everything in that store was stolen. There's no question about it. Everything in that store was stolen, but I didn't know any better. I had no clue that these guys were going out at night and knocking holes in walls of jewelry stores and then using their jewelry outlet as a place to sell it.
The hole-in-the-wall gang.
The hole-in-the-wall gang. You know, that was interesting how they did that. They pulled up a truck against the wall, and the side of the truck was false. Take that down and then bang through a concrete wall, then enter the safe from the outside instead of the inside. But I remember when they got caught on the roof of Bertha's, which is still, that building is still there, Bertha's Fine Furniture.
Mm-hmm.
It was broadcast all over the place that they were going to do that. The cops knew about it before it happened. Someone ratted them out. And when they were on the roof of Bertha's, which was on Sahara, the cops were already there. They got ratted out. We don't know who did it, but they got ratted out. And they all got arrested. And right after that, things began to change. And Spilaccio's influence withered after that happened because everyone knew that it was his thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I went to get paid once for an advertising we did for the Gold Rush. And, you know, I get paid funny ways in Las Vegas. We talked about it on one of the other shows.
But go ahead and say how Tony paid you.
He paid me with, pick something out of the case. Oh, what do you mean? The jewelry? Yeah, pick something out of the jewelry case. How much do I owe you? I said $4,000. He says, yeah, pick the prices are on them. Pick something out. So I chose a ring that had a $10,000 price tag on it, right? And because everybody knew it was all inflated. So I chose a ring. He gave it to me. He told me I owe him $6,000. We laughed. Then I worried because I thought, wait a minute, maybe I do owe him $6,000.
Right.
You know, I'm ready to leave town, you know.
Yeah.
So I went back to the store and I checked with his brother, Mike, who was running the store for him. And he says, no, that takes care of it. You don't have to worry about that. I said, well, I didn't think so, because when I got home, you know, I took the ring off, and it's not this one, but it's a gold one that I still have. I took the ring off, and I'm looking at it, and inside was somebody else's initials. You know, wait a minute, you know, and somebody else's initials. Wait a minute. So I called the store. I call up Mikey. I said, hey, Mike. He goes, hi, how you doing? How you doing? We were the ad man for the place.
Right.
I said, the ring I got has somebody else's initials in it. He says, that's all right. Change your name. I said, I'm not going to change my name, but I'd like to have the finger that it came with. And he says, that's not funny. And I said, well, I'm just joking. Well, after that, I kind of not wanted to go there anymore. I thought I'm going to get beat up in the back alley. But they didn't do much of that. They only beat each other up, frankly, or cheats, like in the movie Casino.
Right. There's a famous Bugsy comment about that.
What is that comment?
We only off each other. We don't off anyone else.
That's right. They always did it to each other. unless you were a crook and you were stealing from them. And that was a different story.
So what kind of ads did you do for Spilotro?
Just jewelry store ads. We'd buy newspaper and have all these great deals, naturally, because everything in there was hot. And, the place could have been on fire, which I think that's how it ended. Now, they actually tore that building down and built something else. It's right where the Golden Steer is.
Oh.
Right in that same shopping center where they built the Allure, and next to that is the Ahern, and then next to that is the Golden Steer. Well, that was the shopping center. And on the movie Casino, they actually use a picture of the real place, which was very interesting to me. We're going to take a break right now,
Okay.
and we'll come back, talk more with Doug Jablin about the days in Vegas when the mob was here and the discotheques were ripping. Some discotheque talk right after this. Time now for more of Vegas Pulse. Stories from the back of the house. What is the back of the house? That's where the cooks are, where the housekeepers are, where the guys on the loading dock are, the maintenance guys, the security people, and the eye in the sky, which is now all cameras. We're with Doug Jablin, documentary maker, filmmaker, and almost a Vegas native.
Yeah.
What else you got for me, Doug?
So in the beginning, I think it was all about Billy Jacks as far as the beginning. Of the
Discos?
scene. As far as discos went, because Larry was a headlining DJ.
We're talking about Larry Taylor.
Yes,
Yeah.
Larry was a headlining DJ, and before that there was DJs, but they didn't do what Larry did. Larry did everything, and he was the person people went to see. And Billy Jacks wasn't that large compared to modern nightclubs, and he had just a few light switches he was working.
Yeah, there wasn't much.
So it was as primitive as it could be. And through time, things evolved from the time of Billy Jacks, which opened in '73, to Jubilation, which opened, I believe, in '77. So
Billy Jacks opened right as when I began my ad business. And I was the guy hanging out at Billy Jacks. I met Larry there, and we created ad campaigns. And one of the slogans that we use that Larry still likes is "Take her to Billy Jacks, because if you don't, someone else will." With big music backgrounds. Those are the days where we cut and spliced the tape. We didn't have the electronics like today. We had a razor blade. Do you remember those days?
Oh, yeah. I
Did you
that
do
too.
any of that,
Yeah,
Doug?
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
You got any disc jockey stories? Let me tell you one.
Okay, go ahead.
I was working at a station in Albion, Michigan during my disc jockey career, which went from 1965 to 1971. My first shot at being a disc jockey. Now I'm back. I do a radio show, as you know, every Saturday evening at 5 o'clock on AM 670 KMZQ, Vegas Live Entertainment Radio, with guests from celebrities from the Strip and other places here in town, mostly lounge acts, helping the singers and the entertainers get a head start in Vegas.
Oh, how fun is that?
It was a lot of fun. But I was a rookie. I go to Albion, Michigan, and I check into a boarding house. I didn't have much with me in those days. I would say a blow dryer and a television set and a toothbrush. That was about it. I traveled light. Well, I'm going to take the morning shift. In those days, the morning shift was the big shift. And I'm getting the morning shift. So I thought, oh, wow, I'm the morning guy. That's terrific. They want me to be controversial. So what am I going to talk about my first day? I read the paper that night, and the mayor of that town was involved in a conspiracy and an embezzlement, and it was on the front page. So I thought that'd be a good story. So as I go on the radio, I pull out the front page, and for 4 hours, I'm trying to be funny, and I'm beating up the mayor of Albion, Michigan. The 4 hours ended, And I get off the air, and it was a tri-level house, so I walk a couple of steps up, and there's the general manager of the station waiting for me. I walk up to him, and I say, hey, that was pretty good, wasn't it? I was really a riot. That was funny. Did you guys laugh? He's, oh, yeah. You were funny. You were very funny. You really were. But here's your final check. I said, what? He says, you should check the station's licensing because the mayor owns this station. Uh-oh. Okay, I get it. I'll go to my rooming house and I'll get my stuff. No need. I look out the window. Here comes a police car, and all my stuff is in it. They went to the rooming house because the woman there got mad and didn't want me living there anymore, even before I messed up on the air, because at 2 in the morning I went down to the refrigerator and ate a piece of chicken. Shouldn't have done that. It's not my chicken. I'm sleep eating. So I'm at the station, and I want to get out of there. They bring all my clothes and everything over, and they load it into my car, which was a hot rod. It was an Olds 442 tri-power, 4 on the floor, great car. Made a lot of noise. They load everything into my car and give me an escort to the city limits. So I literally got run out of town. That's just, I got run out a few other times.
You know, it's part of that series, How I Got Fired.
Yeah, that's how I got fired. Was it something I said? For sure it was. We're going to take another break right now. Back with Doug and me and more stories about Vegas Underground. Vegas Underground. There was a lot of joints called, I think it was Cosmos Underground, which was a mob restaurant.
Downtown.
Do you remember that one downtown?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, we'll be right back after this. And we're back with Doug Jablin, filmmaker, documentary maker, all-around good guy. What you got for me now there, Doug? You got another good question? I can reveal secrets.
So, yeah, I want to talk about the difference in time. So we start with 73. We go to 77. So it's only 4 years, but disco becomes king by the time Jubilation opens with Saturday Night Fever. And there's all these changes. Like in 73, there wasn't really even disco music. Disco music was just beginning in that period of time. So you'd go to a discotheque or a disco, and there wasn't even disco music.
You could open a disco with one record. If you bought the Bee Gees album of Saturday Night Fever, you could open a disco.
Well, that was later.
And that was later, but that's one of the reasons why they started getting crazy with the discos, because of that movie. That movie made a lot of places open. We had 1 or 2 nightclubs before that. You said Billy Jack's opened in 1973. It used to be the Alpine Village.
Yeah.
Which then moved over to, which is also gone. It moved over to where Piero's is, but that was the Villa d'Este, and in front of that was the Alpine Village. But that's where that Billy Jack's was housed. But I remember showing up in there, and it was cocaine infused in there. At the time, everybody was snorting and all that stuff. I hadn't got into it yet, but it was something else. And I said, wow, this is interesting. And I was hanging out at Billy Jack's, and that's when they said, let's do commercials. And I suggested that they go on the radio. Well, we did, and the place succeeded. But then Larry left and joined up with 2 guys, Rainier Gunt and Rudy Schneider.
Well, Rudy helped him open
Billy Jack's.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was
then
the brains.
Then he moved up to Reno after that.
He did. But then they opened the Dirty Sallies.
Right.
Rainier Gunt was the leader of that.
Right. So Larry describes him as just the money, but Rudy was the guy who was the operator.
He was the operator, but Rainier was an interesting guy. You sat in his office, and on the wall were pictures of Adolf Hitler and a picture of him riding in Adolf Hitler's car, and he was tied into that whole thing. It would not go over today.
But even back then, he had to have Jewish clients. So how did it go over with those people?
I can't answer that one, But I remember looking at those pictures on his wall, and it was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
And you didn't see much of him. Rudy was the operator. But Rudy, and bless his heart, I like Rudy. I gave him a job at the Sahara 25 years later when he was down and out. I think he's passed. And he was a great maitre d' and an usher, and I gave him that job. And he worked in the hotel in the main room and always did a good job. But Rudy had a drinking problem, and that kept him away from the jobs he should have had. But they did well with Billy Jackson. Then they opened out in Redondo Beach. They put a boat out there. I can't remember the name of it. Larry would know it.
Okay.
Larry left town to go be a disc jockey on the Alexander. I think it was called the Alexander Club or something like that. But it was a dry dock boat. They bought the boat, reconverted into a disco in Redondo Beach. But they came back. They came back and changed Dirty Sally's into a country joint, and it became the Town and Country.
Was that Rudy who did that?
Yes.
Oh, okay. See,
They did.
there's a story about Rudy and racial discrimination. Started in '74, and the case wound up closing in '77, and there was a change in ownership. But Rudy, I don't believe, was allowing blacks to enter his club.
Well, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it made the papers.
Made
and
the
that's what I read
papers, yeah.
about.
Well, yeah. Well, the Aryan race, you know.
But that happened a lot through time in Vegas.
Did you ever frequent those clubs, or were you just a kid?
No, I was just a kid at that point.
Yeah. We're going to take a break right now. We're going to come back with more of this kind of talk. Once again, you're watching Vegas Pulse, stories from the back of the house. And I want to talk about the eye in the sky a little bit. That's back of the house stuff.
Okay.
And how they catch the crooks.
That sounds
We'll be right
good.
back, right here on Vegas Pulse. Back once again for the final segment of Vegas Pulse, stories from the back of the house.
So before Club Rio, there actually were clubs in hotels in the '70s, over at the Hacienda,
Yes.
at the Landmark, at the Hilton. There were discotheques. So I don't think there were live DJs. I think there were bands, but still they were clubs in hotels.
They weren't live DJs. They were piped in music. They played the music, of course, but I don't remember any DJs being in there. But those clubs didn't catch on because it wasn't local. Those were for the tourists. They didn't catch on. I don't remember going to a hot nightclub in one of the hotels until years later, where they started doing a really good job with the clubs and all that. But at the time, that wasn't their interest. And very rarely was there a live band.
But the casinos would have shows,
Yes.
which integrated disco.
They did. But again, like I said, it wasn't a place where we would go. We didn't want to go to the hotels. Hotels were like they are now. It's tough to get to, a lot of walking, parking, all the stuff that go with it. These buildings were basically standalone buildings. The nightclubs, they built the Shark Club from scratch. It was called Paul Anka's Jubilation. It was right on Harmon, I believe. I think it's a racetrack now.
Yeah, it was right across the street from the Aladdin, which is now Planet Hollywood.
That's right. And now it's a racetrack because that's where they do the Formula One. So we're almost out of time. Got about a minute. Do you have a final question you'd like to ask me? Do I like the mob in Vegas? I did. But we had to remember they were killers and thieves, but they knew how to give customer service, and they did a good job at that. 3 things makes a hotel successful: affordable food, excellent entertainment, and first-class customer service. What's the best customer service you've ever had at any hotel?
I can't think of a specific place.
For me, it's the Four Seasons.
Oh, yeah.
The
That's
Four
a good-
Seasons was
good choice.
amazing. And I stayed at one in Orlando, Florida, and it was just outstanding. It was amazing. Well, that's all we have time for today. This is the final segment of our behind-the-scenes look with Doug. You're going to make the movie? You're going to make the documentary?
I
Are we going to
am.
see it here on Hey Vegas TV?
And when I release it, I'll come back on.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you once again.
You're so welcome, Ron.
That's Doug Jablin, movie maker, documentary maker, right here on Vegas Pulse, stories from the back of the house. We'll see you next time. I'm Ron Garrett. Good evening.